everyone. Today we are here and we're going to discuss about a powerful curriculum design framework giving us such a new and refreshing way to prepare our teaching and learning. Understanding by Design or UBD. We also know that as backward design by the way. Before going further, we need to introduce ourselves first. We are from group PPL PPG SMPN 1 Bandar Lampung. My name is Rosmalita Septiana. I'll be serving as the host and then our guest speaker. Here we have.
Hi, my name is Linda Wijayanti.
My name is Feby Anissa Zanurain.
And I'm Sarayu Anissa.
Welcome everyone.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
Without waiting any longer, let's start our discussion on the topic of UBD. We can start with Linda first. Could you explain, Linda, what understanding by design is? Then give us your own words why it gains so much attention in education.
Absolutely. Understanding by Design or UBD is a framework for curriculum planning developed by Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe. At its core, it's about backward design. Instead of starting with activities or lessons, UBD start with the end in mind, the learning outcomes. Educators first identify what they want students to know and be able to do, then plan assessments to measure those outcomes, and finally design learning experiences to achieve them.
May I add more about it in my own words?
Sure, please.
I would like to add that UBD emphasizes meaningful learning, focusing on big ideas and essential questions that encourage students to think deeply, not just memorize the facts.
That's fascinating. And it's such a shift from traditional approaches. Next, Sarah, could you give us your perspective? What makes UBD stand out compared to other traditional curriculum models that we know before?
Right, so the main difference is that UBD focus on deep understanding rather than just finishing the syllabus. And traditional methods aim to cover textbook chapters, as we know, while UBD asks what's really important to understand. And it's flexible and works for all subjects and making it popular with many teachers.
That's a really great point. Thanks for your perspective. I do agree with that. UBD challenges us to focus on deeper learning rather than just taking off topic. In line with this information, I got from one paper related to UBD from Lirina 2020. This curriculum design advocates teachers should begin planning based on the desired result or learning outcomes before thinking about activities and learning experiences they will apply. Alright, Linda, can you elaborate on how UBD ensures deeper learning and not just surface level engagement?
Of course, UBD focuses on big ideas and essential questions that resonate beyond the classroom. For instance, instead of just teaching students to write descriptive text, you might explore how descriptive language can create vivid imagery or convey emotions. This could involve asking students an essential question like, how can words bring people, places, or experience to life? This approach helps students to see the real-world relevance of writing, such as its use in storytelling, advertising, or journalism, making learning more engaging and meaningful. This can help students to see connections to the real world, making learning more engaging and also meaningful.
And the essential questions often don't have one correct answer. So it's encouraging critical thinking and discussion. And this approach moves the focus from memorizing facts to exploring and discovering ideas.
Exactly. It's about encouraging students to think critically and see relevance in what they're learning. Now, let's dive into the components of UBD. I want to ask Feby, can you walk us through the three stages of backward design?
Sure. So the first stage is identifying desired result. This is where you define learning goals such as content standards, skills, and engineering understandings. It is the big ideas that students should carry with them for life. And then the second stage is determining acceptable evidence. This involves planning assessment that proves students have achieved those goals. This can be traditional tests, performance tests, or even creative projects. Finally, the third stage is planning learning experiences and instructions. This is where you can design lessons and activities that align with the goals and assessments from the first stages.
Oh, I see. So it's all about working backward from the goals to make sure everything connects. Thanks, baby, for breaking it down so clearly. Now, I'm curious, can you give an example of how alignment might work in a real classroom? We can start with Linda. Then, if any one of you guys want to add yours, that's really okay.
Okay,
Sure.
Certainly, the key to align is ensuring that every step in the learning process directly supports the desired outcomes. Using Tabas model 1962, here's how alignment could look in practice. The first one is diagnosis of needs. So in this step, we can assess students' current abilities in writing descriptive text to identify gaps, and then the next, formulation of objectives. We can set clear goals such as students will write a clear and organized descriptive text about their school. The third, selection of content. We can choose materials and topic relevant to describing school environments such as vocabulary about places and objects in school. The next, organization of content. Sequence the content logically, starting with vocabulary, followed by grammar and sentence construction. Fifth, selection of learning experiences. Plan activities like vocabulary building exercises, practicing adjectives and prepositions, and drafting descriptions. The next, organization of learning experiences. We can arrange these activities in a scaffolded manner. For example, starting with simple descriptions, then moving to peer feedback and revisions, and then the last, determination of what to evaluate and how to evaluate it. We can use assessments like a vinyl descriptive text, focusing on criteria like clarity, organization, and use of appropriate language. For example, if the desired result is a well-organized descriptive text about their school, the learning sequence might include the first one, introducing vocabulary related to the school places. Next, practicing grammar structure such as the adjectives and prepositions, and then conducting peer reviews for feedback on initial drafts, and then revising and finalizing their descriptions. So from those activity is designed to build skills that contribute directly to the end goal, ensuring alignment throughout the process. So that's all.
Okay, that's such a practical example. Thanks. Everything builds up towards the final outcome, but the implementation often comes with challenges. Sarah, could you highlight some obstacles educators face when applying UBD? Or you can also add yours if you have one.
Of course, there are some obstacles. Teachers face several challenges with UBD, such as changing the usual approach for starting with activities, such as backward design, which can be a big adjustment. Planning lessons with UBD also takes more time. For teacher, there's pressure to finish the syllabus, not enough training on UBD, and difficulty in creating tests that check real understanding instead of just basic facts. Some teachers also find it hard to switch from traditional methods. For me, sometimes choosing the assessment method is kind of confusing, such as, is it the right way to assess students, something like that.
I do have mine related to UBD implementation in class. I have faced these challenges in my classroom. It is not easy to create tasks that align perfectly with desired outcomes, but once you've done it, the results are worth it. Students engage more deeply because they see the purpose behind what they're learning. Despite not having a direct connections to UBD, Carol Tomlinson's work on differentiated instructions enhanced the UBD framework. She emphasizes that while creating meaningful, outcome aligned exercise can be challenging, doing so increases student engagement.
That's a really good point, Sarah and Fabi. And Fabi, can you explain more on how do you address the time constraint issue?
Alright, I think the collaboration is the key. Working with other teachers to co design units can save time and lead to better ideas. Also, once you have a well designed unit, you can use it for years with minor tweaks, so the upfront investment pays off in the long run. According to Deck and Tomlinson 2019, UBD helps teachers differentiate between necessary and optional material, allowing for more effective use of class time. Teachers can simplify lesson planning and delivery by concentrating on big ideas and crucial inquiries.
That's so interesting and practical too. Speaking of benefits, Linda, what are the biggest advantages of using UBD in curriculum design?
The biggest advantage is clarity. With UBD, everyone, teachers and students understands the purpose of the learning activities. It also encourages higher order thinking because students work on big ideas and essential questions. Lastly, UBD helps ensure consistency across different classes and teachers since the goal and assessments are clearly defined.
Oh yeah, and let's not forget about student motivation. When students see the relevance of what they're learning, they're more engaged. UBD fosters that connection between learning and real life application.
I also noticed that students become more independent learners when they understand the goals and see how the activities fit together. They take more responsibility for their learning. However, supporting students in planning, monitoring, and reflecting on their learning process takes time.
That's great to hear. Now let's talk about practical steps. Phoebe, how would you recommend teacher get started with UBD?
Okay, it is start from really small things. Pick one unit or lesson and try applying the three stages. Use the UBD template which guides you through each step. Focus on crafting clear, measurable learning objectives and assessment. Working together with fellow teachers is also beneficial. That planning as a team can assist in making the process a bit easier.
Alright, nice recommendation. So, for all teachers looking to implement UBD, starting small and working with colleges can really make a difference. Before we move on, I'd like to introduce a useful framework that complements UBD. That is Where To. Are you guys familiar with that? I'm going to start with Sarah. What do you think?
Yes, Where2 is a framework by Wiggins and McTighe. It is a guide to help teachers plan engaging and effective lessons in UBD. And it emphasizes structure yet flexible lesson planning, adapting to the dynamics of the classroom. And it shows that the success of learning isn't just about how well the teacher delivers the material, but also how much the student engage and understand the content.
That's a great summary, Sarah. Thanks. Where to really sounds like it adds value to the UBD approach. Now can we break down to the Where to framework? Linda, I need you to give your perspective. Can you walk us through the meaning of each part?
Sure. So where to stands for the first one is W or where and why. It's all about setting a clear purpose for learning. So when students understand where the lesson is heading and why it's relevant to their lives, they are far more likely to stay motivated and see the value in what they're learning. And then the next is H or hook the students. It's such an important step. We've all seen how powerful it can be to grab students' attention right from the start, whether it's through real-life examples, thought-provoking questions, multimedia, or even quick icebreakers. This is where we set the tone for an engaging and dynamic lesson. The next is E, which is stand for explore, equip, and experience. Emphasize hands-on learning and active participation. It encourages students to connect the material to real-world situations, helping them not just understand but also experience the content. For instance, project-based learning or group discussion can be great tools here. The next is R, or rating, revisit, and revise. Reminds us as teachers that learning is an ongoing process. We need to be flexible, assess how well students are grasping the material, and adjust our methods accordingly to meet their needs. The next, E, exhibit and evaluate, moves us beyond traditional tests. It's about giving students opportunities to demonstrate their understanding in creative, practical ways like presentations, projects, or reflective portfolios. This helps both teacher and students to see the learning in actions. And then the last, T, tailor the students' needs, and O, organize for optimal learning, are about personalization and structure. We know that every class and every learner is different, so adapting our lessons to fit their learning styles, abilities, and program is the key. At the same time, lessons need to be organized in a way that supports a logical and smooth flow of learning.
That's such a comprehensive explanation, Linda. I really appreciate how Where To keeps lesson engaging, purposeful, and adaptable. For instance, hooking the student really resonates. It's something we all know makes a difference in the classroom. And also combining UBD with Where To feels like a natural pairing. UBD gives us a focus on what the goals and outcomes, while Where To brings in the how, ensuring students stay engaged and connected to their learning. Now, going back to what Fabi mentioned earlier about time constraint, balancing detailed planning with day-to-day classroom demands isn't easy. But when frameworks like this are implemented well, the payoff in student engagement and understanding is worth it. Would you all agree?
Yes, I agree.
exactly. That's
Couldn't
a
agree
great
more.
point.
Okay, that's a great perspective, everyone. Thank you for sharing your insight. It's been so inspiring to hear how this framework can truly transform teaching and learning. Well, that brings us to the end of today's podcast. I hope the discussion has given everyone listening practical ideas and renewed motivation to try UBD and Where To in their classroom. A big thanks to you, Sarah, Linda, and Fabi, for such an engaging conversation, and to our listener, thank you for staying tuned in. Until next time, let's keep striving to make learning meaningful and impactful. See you in the next episode.
See you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.